delete the old classroom and we will continue with only one classroom that is newly created today by the admin team. Okay, so just wait until I will give the new code one and everything. Okay, it will allow many people up until 1,000 people. It will allow. Okay, so at last I will share with you. Okay, so just wait for 1 minute. We will start our session. Yeah, I will send the classroom link as well as code in the last of the session. Okay, so otherwise people. Okay, so before starting the session, so I think you people are referring the advanced Java concepts one more time. However, I just requested you, okay, so that you can have a good hands-on experience or good knowledge. Easily you can understand the Spring framework, the Spring concepts, whatever we are going to discuss for another 2 months. Okay, so most of the things are derived from the, okay, why I'm saying this point, the most of the Spring modules are derived from the advanced Java concepts only. Internally, they are using all advanced Java concepts. Okay, whenever we are discussing any module, okay, especially the main modules, we are discussing about a web and JPA module or database modules. Both modules are derived from the advanced Java concepts only. So internally, they are using servlets as well as JDBC API. So that's why I'm keep on telling you, just refer your knowledge, okay, so that it will be very helpful for you. It will be easy for you to understand the Spring training. That is what I just a request for you, everyone. Just a, okay, a heads up point of for everyone. Okay. Now let's start this session. So before starting today's concept, so just revise what we completed yesterday, what we discussed yesterday. Okay, so now yesterday we just started discussion about the what is a programming language, and then we just discussed like what is a framework. So generally programming language is nothing but a simple keywords and set of rules, how to make the programming, how to define the program, how to write down the logic by following all set of rules and regulations of a language. That is what trained by, I mean, that is what provided in the programming language level. With the only programming level, okay, with only programming language, with only pure or raw programming language, we cannot implement any real-time applications. Okay, it's not possible to implement the real-time software applications or the real-time software projects with only pure language, pure programming language. So to implement the real-time projects, to work on the real-time projects, definitely we need from the advanced Java level, as well as definitely we are going to use the framework in every real-time project level. Okay, so what we discussed, just the difference between the programming language versus we discussed like what is a framework. So when it comes to framework, we just discussed like, okay, it's all theory part what we completed yesterday. Framework will save a lot of your time, because whatever the things, whatever the logic we are writing again and again in the core Java level or advanced Java level, in the core language level, in the, okay, in the programming language level, we are going to override those things. We are going to remove that redundancy logic, and we are going to use the framework concepts directly into our real-time project, so that we can directly concentrate on the program, directly concentrating on the requirement implementation. Nothing but when you join into a project, so what will happen? So they will assign a work to you. They will give you a requirement like something, you have to create a URI, okay, or an URL. Like for example, however you created in the servlets level, /login or something /register and all, right? So they will give you a work and they will ask you like, please write down a HTTP method, get method, and load all database, I mean, load all user details from the database. So this is how they will give you a requirement. Okay, once you got the requirement, so how you are going to start your work? So you are going to write down based on your knowledge, you are going to write down the logic and everything. But when you are just trying to write down with respect to core and advanced Java language, you are going to spend a lot of time. Maybe you will get the same result. Okay. And when I am using framework also, I will get the same result. I won't see for output point of view, there will not be any difference. But when it comes to the development point of time, when you're using only pure language, that's something like only core and advanced Java, you're going to complete the task within 2 days. For example, okay, it's an estimation. You're going to take 2 days of time. Okay, but when it comes to the framework level, you can reduce the time to 1 day, minimum 1 day. Okay, so it is maximum 1 day, not even minimum 1 day, maximum 1 day. That means sometimes we may complete that kind of work within half day itself because of the framework, because framework is always providing the ready-made solutions where we are keep on writing the same code again and again in some of the scenarios. Okay, so one of the example we taken yesterday, for example, when you are writing the, okay, I will take one more example also today, what you are familiar or already. Okay, I will take that example after this. So yesterday we just discussed like when you are writing JDBC programs. Okay, if you are writing 10 programs for 10 operations purpose, every time we have to, it's our responsibility as a developer, we have to get the DB connection by passing all database details, something like URL, username, password, and everything. And then you will create the connection object. I mean, after creating the connection object, you are going to create the statement object, and then you will execute your query, and then you are going to commit and close the connection. But here, what are the repeated steps? This is a common step. Okay, getting DB connection is a common step for every database operation. Apart from that, the last step, commit and close, making the changes committed as well as closing the connection. This is also a common step for all 10 operations. But whatever the queries you are executing, 10 queries, maybe 10 operations, 10 queries may different. You are executing sometimes insert, sometimes update, sometimes select query or delete query. But whatever the point we discussed, getting DB connection is a neutral logic. Closing and committing the logic is a neutral logic. So why we have to write down always these things every time? If it is a small project, that too only 10 times you are interacting with the database, you are writing, you have to take care all these things in the 10 times. But when it comes to real-time projects, we are going to write down the logic, or we are going to interact with the database from our Java language, from our programming level, hundreds of times. So that means, are we going to take care hundreds of time getting database connection, closing our connections, all these things and all? If you are making these things at one place, and if someone else is taking care of opening the connection, closing the connection, we are simply concentrating directly on the logic of the project. So whatever the queries you are trying to execute, you are only trying to write down your 10 database queries, 10 database queries, and you are completing your work. You are executing those queries. That's all. You are not worrying about the opening DB connection as well as closing the DB connection. Closing database connection. So who is doing all these things? Opening a database connection before executing the query, and after executing the query, so closing the database connection. Who is taking care of all these things? If you are using the framework will give you an approach like, okay, only one time you will give all your username, password, okay, URL details at one place, and the rest of the things is taken care by the framework. For example, in our case, the Spring will take care of the opening database connection as well as closing and committing your changes. Everything is taken care by the Spring framework. So simply you will start writing your logic of executing the actual database queries as per our requirement and all. So what we are doing, every time we are just concentrating on our pure requirement logic instead of the common logic every time. So those are the advantages we are going to get from the framework level. If you are using a framework, so Spring is taking care of creating the database connections and closing the database connections, and Spring is providing a utility things, or Spring providing some options to you for writing the direct logic instead of wasting time on the common logic again and again. So it's a one small example I'm taking. In similar way, you may have multiple advantages. Okay, you will see those advantages when you are discussing topic by topic. Okay, you will definitely feel the differences between the advanced Java versus as well as Spring framework. So what are the benefits you got? What are the advantages you can easily understand and you can easily identify? Okay, when you are discussing topic by topic. So what are the problems you faced when you are writing the JDBC logic? What are the problems you encounter when you writing the servlets logic? So most of the things will be overcome when you are using the Spring framework. Okay, so that means framework is always about ready-made concepts or ready-made solutions where we are keep on writing the common things in our most of the real-time projects. That is what mostly taken care by the framework. So that's why every real-time project will use always a framework. Okay, so this is what one example, and let's take a small example for you. I think you are already aware of it because of whatever I'm discussing now. It's purely from the core Java. So why I'm taking this example? So my voice is clear, I think, for everyone. Only it might be problem for you. Okay, so just check it. PL is nothing but programming language. Okay, so just I'm using shortcuts for our explanation point of view. FW is nothing but framework. Programming language versus framework. Okay, so just theory point of view. Now let's come back to the one more example. Okay, so before going with the Spring functionalities and features, so I think when you're practicing the core Java, you have a concept called as arrays concept. Arrays concept. So what are the things you are doing with the arrays? Collection of or group of values. So the main agenda of arrays concept is group of values. Group of values. So you can maintain any data type of values with the concept of arrays. So you may maintain integer, that means primitive data types values. You may maintain string data type values. You may maintain student data type values, student objects, employee objects, something. You can maintain multiple same type of values as part of the arrays concept, right? But when you are having arrays concept, when you're already having arrays concept, when you're just learning as part of the core Java, you used one more concept called as collections framework. So that, okay, as part of a core Java training, you have a concept called as collection framework. So what is the why they are calling, even though it is a small part of the core Java topic, but they are calling it as a collection framework. So as part of the collection framework, so that means their intention is as part of the core Java, whatever the problems you have in the arrays concept level, whatever the problems you have in the arrays concept level, those are simplified in the collections topic level. For example, what are the disadvantages of the arrays? Size problem. If you are initiated the size one time, you cannot decrement the automatically. So that is what the main problem in the arrays. And at the same time, iteration of the values. Iteration of values. Iteration of values, one more problem. So that means iteration of values is nothing but you have to write down, you have to take care of some pure logic, you have to write down lot of logic, iterating the values and everything. And size problem. What is the size problem? That means if you are trying to add, for example, your array size is only 100 elements, but you are trying to add, okay, 101 value, then you will get index out of bounds exception. So you will get bounds exception in arrays concept. But when you're coming, whenever you have this kind of problem, what is the solution you have in the collection framework? Simply you will feel like, okay, let me take array list of object. So what you will feel, okay, let me avoid the arrays concept, I will use array list of students. Like that, you will create a class, you will create an object for array list equal to new something array list. So now tell me, new array list. Okay. So just understand the things. So that is even as part of the core Java, they are calling it as a collection API or collection framework, right? So what is the meaning of it is, so whatever the problems you have with the arrays concept, so they simplified everything as part of the collection framework. For example, as part of arrays, you can store any values, duplicate values, unique values, and you can store everything. But it's very difficult to sort out duplicate values. It's very difficult to when you are having size problem. So all these problems with the arrays concept, if you are using only pure arrays, if you are not using any collection topics, but if you are using the array list, you can avoid this problem. First problem is you can avoid the size problem. That means you are not defining any size in the array list object level. So internally, it is taking care of the size. Whenever you are just creating, it will take some default size. Whenever you are keep on adding the student objects, the JVM keep on increasing the memory or keep on increasing size for the array list and all. So internally, they return logic for the array list class. So what is the array list here? In the collection framework or in the collection API, array list is a class. Array list is a class. Who written this class? By the Java language people, by core, okay, by the Java language people, they written a array list class, okay, and as part of array list class, what they are doing, whatever the problems you faced in the arrays concept level, they identified all the problems, they provided solutions as part of the arrays class. They provided all the solutions as part of arrays class. So now you are not at all worrying. So is there any probability of getting array index of the bounds exception or values out of bounds of exception with array list concept? No, never you will get bounds of exception. But when it comes to arrays, it is almost, there is a probability of 100% you are getting bounds of exception, because if the size is reaching. But when it comes to arrays list, dynamically the size is getting increased, dynamically the size is getting decreased. So when you keep on adding the values, okay, the size will be increased automatically. Whenever you keep on deleting the values, the size will be deleted. The size will be reduced automatically, right? So all these things, all this logic, who is written? By the Java language people, by the Java software, they're written as part of the array class, array list class. So you're simply creating object for the array list class. You're simply creating object for the array list class, and simply you're adding the values, and you can reiterate the values also very easily, as well as you can sort out based on the requirement, student names or student marks or student IDs and all. They given a lot of flexibilities as part of the collection framework. For example, you want to allow only unique values instead of duplicate values. So collection framework is given a ready-made solution called as, so what is that ready-made solutions? Yes, set. So set is the ready-made solution. Now guess the difference between the core language and versus framework. Okay. The difference between the few core language, core logic versus the framework logic. So as part of the framework, so this is what this statement I'm using yesterday. Okay, it's a solution on top of the programming language. Even though collection is also a programming language, as part of the core Java language only, but it is a small framework, very just like a little bit small framework, where you are having problems with respect to group of values. Those are all handled by the collection framework. It's a very, very small thing with respect to group of values. But when it comes to group of values, when it comes to database operations, when it comes to creating the web applications, when it comes to writing multiple URLs, when you are creating the multiple URIs, okay. So if you are taking the overall core Java and advanced Java level, you may have different levels, different problems, okay, or you need to write down lot of logic even as part of arrays also. For example, I asked you one question now. So to allow only unique values, you set like, we have a set option in the collection framework. So simply you will create object for the hash set, and you will keep on adding the string values or whatever values, so that it will allow only unique values and everything. It will not allow any duplicates. But can we achieve that logic with the arrays concept? For example, I take an 100 size of string array. So I can store the values delete for 10 times. But I don't want to allow delete second time onwards, but I want to use only arrays topic. So can we achieve that requirement by using arrays? Yes, we can achieve that logic. Okay, we can achieve that logic. But what is the problem? You have to write down a lot of logic. For example, just take a pseudocode. You will create something like string. Okay, just pseudocode I am writing. Just like names equal to, so something array you taken. So the size is 100 size you are taking. Okay, and what is the size? 100. Fine. You are simply adding like name of, in the 0 index, you just kept like equal to Dilip. And in the 10th index, maybe you are keeping like again Dilip. Assume like just in the 10th index or something like 20th in 99. So you added 4 times, but my requirement is I don't want to allow Dilip multiple times. That means a value should not be repeated again in the overall array level. So what you have to do then, whenever, okay, just understand the things. Whenever you are trying to add, element or value to the array, what you have to do internally, you have to iterate your array. That means what you have to do again, based on the current size of the array, you have to write down the for loop, and whatever the incoming value you are getting, whatever the value you are trying to add, for example Dilip, you will check like, is Dilip already existed or not? Is Dilip is available in the array or not? Is Dilip available or not? Like that, you will iterate one by one. If nowhere is Dilip is available, then you will allow for the Dilip value. So when second time you are inserting Dilip, again you are checking based on the for loop, again you are iterating one by one. So Dilip is available. So you are not inserting the Dilip, you are moving to the next value level. So the same functionality you can able to achieve it. Okay, it's not like we cannot achieve it, we can achieve it. But what is the problem? How much time you taken to write down this? You may take 1 hour of time, and you may take like around 50 lines of code, or maybe more than 50 lines of code. Sir, in that can we use else condition? Yeah, that's what you will use, conditions, you will use the for loops, you can write down, but that is what you can achieve the functionality by using arrays as well. But assume now in the hash set class, now if you take in the hash set for same thing, what will happen? You simply created hash set of the string data type generics or whatever it is. So it's a core Java concept. So what you will do, followed by something names equal to new hash set, you will create object like that. Okay, just give me a moment, just one moment. Yeah, sorry. So what you will do, simply you will create object for this, and simply you are adding like names dot add of Dilip. Okay, so when you are trying to add the second time, it will not throw you any error, right? It will not throw you any error, it will not give you any exception. But internally you are feeling like you are adding the 2 times Dilip value, but it is maintaining only one Dilip value as part of the hash set. So what they are doing, observe it. Maybe internally they are also checking all these kind of things. Okay, they might have using internal some other concepts or whatever it is. Finally, what they are making, whenever you are printing names, whenever you are just printing name, Dilip will be printed only one time, because hash set will allow only unique values. So how many lines of code you written? Just 2-3 lines of code. But when it comes to here, you return one for loop, as well as you are going to write down if else conditions based on the index, the Dilip is available and all everything. But here, just 1-2 lines, you are able to complete the task. So you got what is the difference between a simple core programming language versus a framework and all. So whatever the things we can see here with respect to collection framework, however the comfort we are feeling, however the relax we are feeling, okay, with respect to writing the core logic. So similarly, we can see a lot of benefits with respect to Spring framework also. Is it clear with programming language versus framework? Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now let's come back to the actual Spring framework point of view. So we just understood the one more example, like the difference between the programming. If you writing what is a pure programming language, instead of if you are going for the framework, you have to spend lot of time to achieve your requirement. But if you are using the advantages of the frameworks, you can complete your work within less time. So that's why when you are using the framework, so I taken yesterday one statement where it is. Yeah, the development is very fast. So observe here, just yesterday we just taken on high level a small example, and I told like it will take 15 lines, 15 minutes of time or something. I taken like, okay, 15 minutes of time, but when you are using frameworks and all, you can complete only 2 minutes of time. So this is what the one example. If you observe the arrays and arrays versus hash set, or arrays versus a linked list or array list, whatever it is. So to achieve this, okay, not allowing the requirement is duplicate values. So if you are using pure arrays concept, it may take in 1 hour, but if you are taking only 2-3 minutes of time because of framework and all. So that is what the advantages. Welcome to world, sir. Just 3 lines. Please share previous class. Can you please? Okay. So at last, I will share the Google Classroom. Whoever is missed that, we created a new one. I will share it the last of the session. Just leave it. Okay. So now come back to the, and after that, we just revise like, okay, we started the introduction about the Spring framework. So generally the Spring framework is introduced in the 2003 year into the software industry or into the market level. So after that, people started using the Spring framework into real-time projects because of the features provided by the Spring framework. So what are the features provided by the Spring framework and all? We will discuss one by one. And at the same time, Spring framework is released into the market. Okay, the overall Spring framework is derived or segregated as a multiple modules level. They segregated the entire Spring framework. Yesterday, I just taken you a small diagram and I shown you how the diagrams are given and everything. Just give me a moment. Sorry. Let me open that image one more time. Yeah, so this is what. So yesterday we just taken the modules. What are the modules available as part of the Spring framework? So we have a fundamental and basic module called as core module. On top of core module, the other modules are implemented by the Spring framework. So as part of the core module, what we are going to learn? We are going to learn like how the Spring framework is designed, as well as how the Spring framework is internally working. Okay, what are the principles they used? What are the design patterns they used as part of the Spring framework implementation? So how we are going to work with the Spring framework, everything will be covered as part of the core module. So it's a core. Core is nothing but always like however you have a core Java concept. So core Java is a foundation for the all other Java topics, right? So when you are just learning the core Java, then it's a foundation for the advanced Java, and then it is a foundation for the frameworks like Spring, Hibernate, and everything. So without core Java, you cannot understand of the other things. So in similar way, without knowledge of the core module in Spring framework also, you cannot understand the other modules. Okay, so that is why we are going to start our training with the core module right away, and then we are going to move to the other modules. So Spring is provided one more module called as the data module. It will be called as a database module. That means by using this specific module, we are going to interact with the database always, and we are going to perform all database operations. For example, however, you use JDBC API. So you use JDBC API as part of your advanced Java. The JDBC API is defined for the database operations. By using JDBC API, what you did, you interacted with the database, you performed the database operations, deleting the rows, inserting the rows, selecting the rows, and every operation you did by using JDBC. In similar way, Spring provided an alternative module called as data module. Here we are going to deal with only database operations. And after that, Spring provided one more module called as web module, we discussed yesterday, by using web module, we can, whatever the servlets, okay, whatever the servlets, by using servlets concept, whatever the functionalities you implemented in your previous examples in your training level, so those are the things we are going to create it by using the web module. But whatever the problems you faced in the servlets level, whatever the logic you are written again and again, whatever the configurations you written as part of the servlets configuration, all those things will be removed from the web module level. But internally, Spring will take care of those configuration and all, but we will see how it will be. So the main agenda of web module is creating the web applications as well as web functionalities, as well as the more popular concept nowadays is REST services. So we can create the REST API services. Create the REST API services by using web module. So database module is for the only reserved for database operations. Web module is for the web project implementation. And you have one more popular module is called as security module. That means how you are providing security to the application, how you are enabling the security to the our Spring application or Spring Boot application, whatever it is. So those are the things we are going to cover as part of the security module. The solutions are given by the security, enabling the security. Ready-made solutions are given by the Spring security module. So as well as in web module also, we will have a lot of ready-made solutions. So this is what we discussed yesterday more about the Spring framework introduction as well as Spring modules. So today we are going to see the main benefits of the or advantages. We can say like one more word called as advantages of the Spring framework. Spring framework. So advantages of the Spring framework. So what are the main advantages? Why Spring is more popular? Why every real-time Java project is using only Spring framework, even though we have other frameworks in the market? Why people are choosing only Spring framework? Because of the some other advantages. Okay, the Spring got more popular. So what are those advantages and all? We are going to see now, and we are going to understand how it will be and all. Okay, so let's come back. The first one is dependency injection. We are going to see practically also these things. The more popular concept of the Spring framework is, the more advantage of the Spring framework is overall all the modules, the mere, okay, dependency injection. So this is the only one concept. Along with the second thing is IOC. So what is the IOC and all? I will tell you. Okay, just wait for the time. Inversion of control. So now we are just trying to understand why Spring got more popular. What are the best advantages given by the Spring framework and all? We are going to understand now. Okay, so the Spring framework is more popular because of these two principles or because of these two concepts. So what and all we are going to see one by one. So the first one we will discuss like dependency injection. For example, when you take in the Java programming language, core Java programming language, they will teach you like what are the advantages of the Java programming language. So what is the first word they will tell you? What is the first sentence they will tell you? What are the main advantages of a Java programming language? Okay, so let's, yeah, oops is the main concept. They will tell first the main advantage of the Java language is object oriented programming language. So because of object oriented programming language, the Java is more popular. This is what the one sentence given by as part of our training. Yes, obviously when comparing with other programming languages, okay, when we're comparing with other programming languages, by the time Java released into the market, we do have other programming languages like Python is already there by the time Java releases. Okay, and C, C++, we do have something like Perl, CGI. There are so many programming languages available by the time Java released into the market. But why Java is more popular? Because Java designed as something like a concept called as object oriented programming language, so that you can see the better performance. That's why all people are migrated to the Java language, and Java got more popular because of the object oriented programming language. And the second thing is the 4 principles of the object oriented programming language. So they highlighted, the Java marketing team or the Java language team, okay, they highlighted as Java is going to give the better performance, best features when you are using the object oriented principles, something like inheritance, abstraction, polymorphism, encapsulation and all. So this is how, because of these object oriented programming as well as these 4 principles, the core Java is widely used in the real time projects, or got more popularity in the software industry. In similar way, because of these 2 things, the main agenda, the main advantages of the main reasons getting Spring Framework is the better performance, or whatever it is, application development is fast, as well as performance point of view. These 2 things are making more popular by the Spring Framework. So what are the dependency injection and all? We will try to understand now. So first thing, let's discuss about the dependency injection. Then we will come back to the IOC point of view. So what is the meaning of dependency and what is the meaning of injection? What is the general English meaning? What is the general meaning of dependency? Somewhere you are depending on the something, right? So for example, if you people are taking, when you are students, we are dependents of our parents. Dependence of our parents. We are dependents of our parents. Okay, I'm just taking a simple normal example. Then we will try to convert it as a Spring point of view and all. So we are dependents of our parents, right? So whenever we are studying, definitely we don't have any income. We will be the dependents for our parents. Now you need some amount. You need some amount, or you want to pay some amount, or you want to pay some course fees or college fees, whatever and all. So who is going to provide all these things to you? So who is accommodating all these things to you? As a dependent people, as we are dependents to our parents, the parents, okay, what parents? Parents are accommodating, the parents are accommodating all our needs. So all our needs are accommodating by students. So when we are in kids, or when you are child, or when you are students, most of the times we are dependents to the parents. The parents are accommodating all our needs. So it's a simple, so that is what here. One more point you need to remember, people. So whenever any programming language or any concept, if you take core Java, class and object concept, inheritance concept, okay, or polymorphism, something else, you can take any concept. Now we are discussing something like dependency injection with respect to Spring Framework, right? So any concept generally will be taken reference from our real life examples only. Okay, maybe those are programming languages, maybe we are talking in a computer language format, but the core idea, the basic idea is always from our surrounding things only. Okay, the reasons, the basic idea behind every programming language, as or the reason, the basic idea behind the every concept is from our real life only. Okay, don't expect something somewhere else, it is automatically created, right? So in similar way, now even dependency injection, we are not discussed anything related to the Spring. Technically we will discuss, just I'm taking an example. So as a dependence to our parents are accommodating all our needs. So whatever you need, they are accommodating. In similarly with respect to, basically Java is a object oriented programming language. Object oriented programming language. That means in Java we will write down the classes, and then we will create objects. We will create objects while executing our program. So whenever you are executing our program, all classes will be converted as objects, and on top of object, every logic will be executed. Every logic will be executed on top of the objects, right? Now the concept here is creating the objects. Creating the objects. So who is creating these objects? Whenever you are writing a program, for example, let me take a small example right away. So just understand the dependency injection technically as well as theoretically with a pure explanation, with pure example. Okay, I will take a best example. Just try to understand it. Okay, so however we are dependents to our parents, however parents are accommodating all our needs. Needs means whatever the things we want in our real life, including your fees, including your clothes. If you want to buy your class, you don't have money, so definitely your parents will provide you at the stage of your student, right? When you are in the kids level or whatever it is, at what certain level we are dependents to our parents, and they are going to accommodate all our things. Now in similarly, when you are writing in part of Java programming language, anyway, Spring also, now whatever the Spring framework, finally we are going to write down all the concepts in the Java language only. So Spring framework itself a Java language, but it just like named it as a framework. That means it is giving some ready-made concepts. That's it. But finally, overall, we are going to write down classes and objects again as part of the Spring framework or Spring framework project. Now, just take an example. Let me close all this. Okay, so let's understand. So we are going to create the classes, and when you are executing the things for those classes, objects will be created. So who is going to create objects? Generally, Java, inside Java, assume like JVM is going to create the objects for our classes, and we are going to execute our logic. So let's do one thing. So we are already started the technical discussion of the Spring framework. Okay, so we are already started. So let me take a pros. I'm just writing a simple Java classes, or let me create a package. So I think you should be familiar with the Eclipse. Okay. I think you all are aware of the Spring Eclipse IDE, because we are going to teach all the entire Spring framework as part of Eclipse IDE only. Okay, so please be familiar with the Eclipse. I think you are already aware of the Eclipse. So let me write down a simple package. So com.naresh dot something, some demos or whatever it is. So let me write down a class. Okay, so I'm going to write down a class called as address. So what is this class? Address class. Sir, please use while color background so that it is easy to visible. So if you are attending from computer or if you are attending from the mobile, it definitely it is a digital media, so you can easily view it. If anyone else is creating new project, okay, I will create a new project, don't worry. So just taking a small example of class, that's all. Okay, so definitely I will create a new project for our Spring and all. Okay, I will change the theme of my Eclipse. Class always depends on objects because objects holds memory. Class, okay, fine. I will change my background to the white color, don't worry. So I don't know. Yeah, give me a second. Let's try to change it to the white color background. So anyone of appearance? Okay, here theme, right? Okay, good. Light is nothing but white color, I think. Yeah, fine. So let me restart the Eclipse. Save it. So whatever the notepad I'm taking, is it okay? displaying in the white and black and white concept combination. Okay, good. So then we just change it to the Eclipse theme, to the white color. So I think now I change it to the white. Okay, let's come back. So you people know what is a Pojo class? Okay. So anyone of it's not anyone. I think you are already aware of the Pojo classes. So anyone knows what is a Pojo class? How to write down a simple Pojo class? Yes, Java Beans, plain old Java object classes. No, no, no. Okay. But then definitely they have teached as part of core and advanced Java. So without Pojo class, no one, you cannot complete core and advanced Java. Yes, writing setter getter methods for our properties. Okay, so just revise your Pojo classes knowledge. Anyway, you are going to write down by end of the training, you are going to write down hundreds of Pojo classes. So generally, we will follow a rule for the Pojo classes, like as part of encapsulation or whatever it is. We will define some private variables and all. Anyway, we will see that part later. So I created an instance variable, private, the city name, as well as something like pin code. So something, some address details I'm connecting. Okay, some details, and something like state, from which city, from which state, and what is your pin code and all. I'm trying to collect all the details. So state. So these are the three properties I taken. So the Pojo class is nothing but simply writing a instance variables, okay, instance properties, and then you are creating a constructor as well as setter getter methods, or then we can call it as a Pojo class. So generally you can take help of Eclipse. You people aware of all these things by this time, maybe as part of core and advanced Java training level. Anyway, you can see. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to write down setter getter methods for the my all three properties. I'm just taking help of Eclipse. If you are not having knowledge of the Pojo, so anyway we are going to write down multiple Pojo classes as part of Spring, because the Spring framework is entirely encouraging writing Pojo based programming. That means we are going to write down hundreds of Pojo classes as part of our training. By the end of the training, we will write down minimum 100 Pojo classes. That's guarantee. So you will get slowly. So leave about the data types. Why I taken string integer, you can take, no problem. Just understand. I just taken a small class. I'm going to create for the object. Just concentrate on the object creation and all. So leave about the data types and all. That is a different concept. So just take as straightforwardly taken string and all. Now fine. I'm going to write down a main class. Okay. So just move to the main class. Something. I'm going to write down the main method and everything. So I want to create object for the address class. So what I will do, simply I will import. So I'm going to create address new equal to address. Okay. So even let's do one thing. Let me add a constructor also. Then for me, it will be very easy to create address. So you know that how to create constructors, also how to write down constructors, or you can take help of the Eclipse also. It will type automatically by the Eclipse. So I written parameterized constructor. Okay, so now I'm calling it as a Pojo class. Generally these are called as a Pojo classes. Plain old Java object class. So this concept you should aware of little bit, but anyway you will get lot of hands on. Now come back. It is having a constructor concept. You have a parameterized constructor. So you have to pass state, city followed by the pin code. So the state is, just assume I'm just writing a class. I'm creating object. TG followed by state is something like Hyderabad, and something like the pin code is something 5,72,000 or something, whatever it is. So what I did here, I just created object. It's a pure core Java. Okay. So I created an object. That's it. I can print the address details and everything. I can do that. Now I'm going to write down one more class called as employee class. Okay, or student, whatever it is. So what is this? This is a employee class. So as part of employee class, I'm going to collect employee name as well as age and address of the employee. Address of employee. So these are all just pure core Java things. Okay, don't ask me doubts. And that too, I'm just taking object creation point of view. We need to understand. Private, something I'm taking string name, private integer. Okay, private integer age of the employee, and then private address. Okay, what I'm doing, I'm taking address reference as part of my class. So employee is having address class reference. So you can use one class, another, user defined data types as part of variable names. As part of the, you can declare as part of the instance variables and everything. Another class references, user defined data types and all. So now I'm going to create the setter getter methods. So I'm selecting all the properties. That means I return setter methods for these three properties. So for get name, get age and everything. Okay. So good. And I'm going to write down constructor also for these three parameters. Source generate constructor using fields. Okay. So I return a constructor also. So now also I can call it as a POJO class. Okay, so generally these type of things will be called as POJO classes. Private properties, for those properties setter getter methods, and if you want you can add the constructors as well. Then we will call that class as a POJO class. You should not write down any other extra methods and all. You should not write down. So as per the POJO classes rules and regulations. Okay, so now come back to the main class. I want to create employee object now. I want to create, so leave it array class. So I just deleted address. Now I want to create employee object. So what I will do, so simply employee E1 equal to new employee. So what are the three details you have to pass? Name, age, and as well as address object. So in the first parameter, you are passing employee name. Something name is Dilip and age is something like 30 years. Okay. And then what is the third parameter you are passing here? What is the third parameter you have to pass? So in this program, what is the use of constructor? Because we have setter methods. So sometimes you can write down default constructors, you can write down parameterized constructors and all. Okay, so leave it. So here what I have to inject now, what is the, so if you observe the employee class, go to the employee class, let's take an image, file, new. Okay, so you return an address class first. What is that? Address class. Address class you return. So is address class depends on any another class? The question is address class, okay, whatever the address class we return, first class, is it depending on any another class as an individual address class? Observe here, go to the address class. So you are taking only straightforward string data types. You are not dependent on the any another user defined data type, or you are not depending on any another class. You are not depending on any another class as part of your address class implementation. Yes, no, we are not. Address is a individual class. It's not depending on any other third party class or any another class. it's not depending. It is straightforwardly using only the string data types or primitive data types, assume like primitives or whatever it is. But it is not using or not referring any other class, not referring any other class. Okay, it's not using or not referring any other class. So address is completely individual. The answer is no. The answer is no. Now, fine. When it comes to the employee class, come back to the employee class. What are the three properties you have? So with respect to address, so these are the three properties you have. So just do one thing. So understand, this is what dependency injection I am giving the background. Okay, so don't, if you are understanding this example, dependency injection is done almost. That is what. So just I am taking as a reverse engineering point of view. So we are just discussing with respect to core Java. What are the problem we have in the core Java? It's not a problem. What we are doing in the core Java, we are just discussing now. But the same concept with respect to Spring Framework, what is going to happen and all, we are going to discuss. We are discussing. Okay, so you have state, city, as well as pin code as part of your address. These three are pure string data types. You don't have any dependence of any another classes. The word is another class. You are not at all depending. The address class is not at all depending on another class. Now let's come back to the employee class. Okay, so when it comes to the employee, okay, when it comes to the employee class, go to the employee class. You have again three properties. Generally, the instance variables of the Pojo class will be called as properties. Okay, in real-time projects or wherever it is, generally we can call these things as a properties. What is the meaning of properties here? Whatever the three variables we defined as instance variables is nothing but out of all methods without static keyword. So that is what. So these will be called as generally Pojo properties. Properties is nothing but variable names, variables, whatever the variables we define. So address is having three properties: state, city, pin code. Employee is having three properties: name, age, as well as address. Right, like that. So we used to call it as a properties. Okay, just remember the word properties. Properties are nothing but the instance variable names. Instance variable names. Instance variable names will be called as properties. Generally, it's a user terminology. Okay, so now let's come back to diagram. So when it comes to the address, sorry, employee, not address. It's all about employee class. So how many properties is having employee class? Name property, age property, address property. Name property, age property, as well as address property. So just take these things: name, age, and when it comes to third property, what is this property? Is it a straightforward primitive data type or string data type? No, it is a data type of another class. This property referring another class. Another class is nothing but address class. So the ADD property, the variable name is ADD. What is the data type if it is address? Address is nothing but another class. So that means here, whatever ADD is referring another class called as address class. Address class. So that means now the same question, if I taken, okay, with respect to employee, class, is employee class depends on any another class? Answer, yes, depend on address class. Yes, exactly. So is employee class depends on any another class? Yes, exactly. Yes, the answer is yes. That to which class? Address. That means as per our logic, for example, I written some logic, go to the employee logic. If I want to create object for employee class, if I want to create object for employee class, I written only parameterized constructor. I want to create object for the employee class. So definitely you have to pass 3 values to the constructor. One is the string data type name value, integer data type age value, and when it comes to the third parameter, third constructor parameter, what you have to pass? The address object. So whatever the object you are going to create for the address class, that should be passed here. That should be passed here. So that means the address is injecting here. The address is injecting. You have to inject the address object. What you are injecting here? So let's take here injecting. So you have to inject which object? Address object. So that means to inject the address object. What is this? To inject the address object. So so the first point is, can we create, okay, as per our logic, can we create employee object directly without address object? Without address object. What is the answer? Can we create employee object directly without address object based on this logic? Okay, whatever the logic we written, think about the written logic. So can we create employee object directly without address object or not? No. Yes, good answer. No is the correct answer, because the constructor, the third parameter, is always expecting address object. You are completely, the employee is completely dependent on, the employee is completely depends on, the employee object is completely depends on address object. So that means before creating the employee object, you should be ready with address object. You should be ready with address object. So that means once you are creating the address object, if you are creating address object for your address class, and that address object should be injected to the employee constructor level, then employee object will be created. So once you are creating the address object, then you are in the third step, you are passing that address object. That means you are passing that address object to employee class. Okay, it's a pure core Java. We are not discussed anything newly. Okay, apart from object and constructor. Okay, it's a pure core Java. So to create employee object, you need to have help of, you need to get address object first, and that address object should be passed to employee constructor. So now I'm calling this overall concept as a simply address object injected to employee object. Address is object is injected to the employee object. That means whenever you created object for the employee class, the third property for name, you will give a direct value something like Dilip. For age, you will give direct value something like 31. But when it comes to the address property, are you going to give direct values? No. Whatever the address object you created, for example, state is Telangana, city is Hyderabad, and Hyderabad, and pin number is something, pin code number is something I given 5,72,000 or whatever it is. You given all these details as part of the address object, and this address object should be referred by this third property. So whatever the address object you created in the line number 2, that will be referred by the employee class. So that means address object should be there, address object should be there, address object injected to the employee object. If I am converting the same sentence in a reverse order, employee is depends on address object. Okay, So just I written in a reverse point of view the same statement. Address object injected to the employee object. That means employee is completely depends on the address object. Employee is completely depends on the address object. So is it clear whatever we just discussed as of now? Or it like tightly coupled reference concept? Yes, that is what I am going to come back to the loosely coupled concept with this example. Okay, so we are having still lot of discussion to make sure the dependency injection concept understanding perfectly. Okay, let's take it 1 hour or 1.5 hours, no problem. Because the overall Spring framework, if you observe everywhere, just go and observe in the Google or wherever it is, the overall Spring framework is implemented based on the dependency injection and IOC principle. That means that much very important understanding this concept. Okay, so now what we are discussing from last 20 minutes, we are just discussing what we did so far in the core Java level. So whenever you have one object depending on the another object, so now what you will do, let's take a main class, some testing class, whatever it is. Main class is nothing but to create the employee object, to pass address of the employee object. For example, this is the Dilip data. So here you need to pass the Dilip address details. But do you have address object ready? No. So that means either you have to pass null, or that means you are not passing the Dilip address details. If you want to pass, you have to create object for the address class. Okay, then Dilip address something object name equal to new address followed by my state, something like TG Telangana, something assume shortcut I taken. So Hyderabad. So I'm going to take a word pin code number something like 5,72,000. So what you did in this line number 8, you created object for the, so it's a string, right? So anyway, leave about the data types, understand only objects dependencies, that's it. So you created, so in this line what you are doing, creating object of address. It's a pure core Java. Simply you created object with the constructor concept. Fine. Now to create the employee object, first value is clear, second value is clear, but when it comes to the third parameter of the constructor is referring to the what? Address data type. Address data type. That means you have to inject address object. That means you have to inject always address object. So can I inject now Dilip address here? Yes. So can I inject Dilip address? Yes, good. Yes, I can simply passing this at Dilip address to the employee level. So that means creating employee object with address object. Okay, with address object. So that means the statement is, as a Java developer, as a Java programmer in core Java point of view, I am injecting who is doing as a development point of view itself, as a developer point of view itself, by using the new operator, by creating the employee object, I am injecting address object to employee object. Okay, I'm injecting employee object to the, I'm injecting employee object to the, sorry, address object to the employee object level, So I'm injecting address object into inside employee object. So I'm injecting address object to employee object. Now, can I see all the details of the employee? Now, can I print everything? So sys out of Dilip dot get something. Okay, assume like, so do one thing. Let me write down control shift format. So let's make it very clear. Public void print employee data. Print employee data. Okay. So this is what expecting employee something e. So now I'm going to call this method. So it's a instance method or non-static method. You need to create object for this class. Okay, just I can print here itself in the main method itself, but somehow I taken extra method. That's all. New main class. So based on the test dot print employee data, and which object you have to pass here as part of employee data? Employee object. Yes. So that means Dilip. So assume like Dilip we need to pass, or EMP, you can take any name. Now here sys out of E dot get name, E dot get age, and E dot get address. Okay. So what will happen whenever I am executing this program? First address object will be created in the memory. Then that address object you are passing to the employee class. So the same address object injected to the employee. So who is doing all these things in the, when you are executing our program, who is going to do all these things? Creating object for the address class, injecting into the employee. All these functionalities are taken care by the JVM. So that means save your changes, run your program, run as Java application, run as Java application. So observe the console. So something cache problem, something update, refresh. Let's do one thing. Project clean. Okay, it's a something cache problem, don't worry. So I'm just refreshing all my projects, building. Okay, so let's try now. Run as Java application. Still load main class. Final load. Let's do one thing. Let's create a new project. New project. Quickly Java project. I will copy paste those examples. Okay, Spring hyphen demo or something, whatever it is. Java 17. I don't want to waste time with respect to cache and everything. So let's do one thing. No. Okay, so I just copy pasted into a new project. Leave about old project. It's having some problem. It's very old project. Close all. So come back here. Address employee main class. Okay, so execute our program now. Run as Java application. Okay, so see here, you are able to print Dilip, you are able to print 30, and you are able to print the address as well. So if you want to get the details, get city. So this is all core Java concept. So actually this is what not actually we need to discuss, but let's write down a perfect example. Then we will convert it as a Spring dependency injection level. City you printed, state, as well as get pin code. Okay, you are getting address object. From that again you are calling getter methods. So these are the advantages of the POJO classes. So save all your changes, run your program one more time, run as Java application. So you can see all your data, you are able to print all your data. So here one thing what we need to understand. So step number 1, who created the object? Who created objects in our example? Who created both the objects including address and employee? Address and employee classes. So who created objects for address and employee classes? Yes. By default, internally JVM is going to create the things. Fine. Second point. Who injected, okay, or past, whatever it is, who injected dependency of object address into employee class, employee object. So who injected? Yes, JVM again. Fine. Okay, good. JVM. Okay. So do it. JVM. Fine. Now the third question from our example. Okay. As per logic. Okay. As per logic. Okay. As per logic. Logic means come back here. So this logic. Okay. As a developer, as a developer, I written to create objects, to create objects of address and employee classes. Okay, to create as a developer, okay, to create objects of address and employee classes. What I did? What I did? Tell me what I did. Yes, I used new operator. So setter getters are the methods. Yes, using new keyword. So to create the objects, that's why I used very clearly to create objects. Okay, just understand the question. Answer is very easy then. So as per logic, as a developer, what I did to create the objects of address and employee classes, I written this is what all we are doing in the core Java point of view. Now, when it comes to the Spring framework level, the dependency injection, the topic of dependency injection is talking about, okay, let's understand now. Okay, I will give very simple English. Okay, now the dependency injection in Spring is talking about instead of writing logic of creating objects. Okay, understand it, every word here, every word is important. Instead of writing logic of creating objects in program level, that means in our code level, in code or program, whatever it is, program or code, whatever the code we are writing, program or code level. Okay, so what Spring is saying, the dependency injection is a concept is instead of writing logic of creating objects of classes. Anyway, we will create objects always for the classes only. There is no doubt in that. So instead of writing logic of creating objects, that means writing new keyword at code level, Spring is having a concept. Spring is expecting providing, okay, the Spring is telling us like instead of you writing the logic of creating objects and classes of the program or code level, you will write down the classes. We will define classes, address classes and employee classes. But instead of writing creation of objects logic, that means using new keyword and all, Spring is telling us like you don't write down any logic for creating objects. Spring is expecting us from like, okay, please provide details of class, please provide details of class to Spring Framework, Spring Framework, so that Spring will create objects of your classes or our classes, whatever it is, as part of our project. Spring will create objects of our classes, and Spring will pass those objects, whatever the newly created objects. Spring will pass newly created objects. Spring will pass the newly created objects for our classes wherever we want in our program. So it's a very simple English I written. Okay, the professional technical dependency injection and all we will understand later. Just a common man words level I written it. Okay, so just try to understand here. Instead of writing logic of creating objects of classes, that means I can remove classes here because we are going to create objects always for the classes only. Instead of writing logic of creating objects in our program level, so the meaning of it is, if you want address object, if you want employee object, okay, as per our example, I created address object, I created employee object, fine. So two object I created by writing the external logic, by writing logic of using new keyword. So what I did as a developer itself, as part of the core Java concept, myself written logic for the creating object by using new keyword. Okay, so here also for address, for employee, I created objects. As a developer, I myself written logic for new. Okay, for myself, I created address object and as well as employee object by writing the new keywords. That line number 11 and line number 15. But Spring is telling us like, come back to our statement again. Spring is telling us like, when you are using Spring framework in our project, we should not write down logic for the creating of the objects. That means we should not write down these two lines in our program level. That means then if you are not writing that logic in our programming language level, who will create objects for address and employee class? I want to pass the list object, some employee object to print employee data method. I want to pass employee object. So that means I want to pass employee object here. But internally, employee is having dependency of address object. If I am not able to create the address, if I don't want to create address object as well as employee object, then how can I get the employee object? That too with the dependency of address object. For that, Spring is telling us like, the Spring framework is telling us like, okay, Spring is expecting us from like, please provide details of classes. So that means whatever the classes you want to create objects, those classes information to whom you have to provide? You have to provide to the Spring framework. So how you are going to do and all we will see. Just theory point of view we are understanding. So assume like it is a Spring framework. So that means Spring is telling us like which classes objects you want to create. For example, I want to create object for the address class. That too, after that, I want to create object for the employee class. So what you have to do, you have to configure or you have to pass this information to the Spring framework. You have to configure or you have to pass these values with the passing or configuring, okay, class details with Spring framework, So that means understand here. Step number 1, what we did, written with respect to Spring. I am talking now. Okay, we are done with the core Java point of view. Now with respect to Spring, the Spring dependency injection is a concept. What is happening and all we are just discussing. So we return address class, as well as second step we return employee class, POJO classes we return. In the third step, generally in the core Java point of view, what we did, we created objects directly. We created objects directly. That means we return by using new operator, new address, and new employee, something like that. We return logic. But as per Spring is saying like, however you return in the core Java, whenever you need address object and employee objects, however you return new keywords and all, don't do these things now onwards when you are in your programming level. It's ever okay. Once you are implementing the classes, the object creation part, whatever the new keywords, new term, okay, you are using new keyword and creating the objects. You should not do that. Only thing is, whatever the return classes you return in the step number 1 and step number 2, the classes information, you have to pass those information, the class details to the Spring framework. Then automatically the Spring is saying like, just come back to our point again. Please provide details of classes to the Spring framework so that Spring will create objects of our classes. So Spring will create object of our classes. So who is creating now? The entire Spring framework. Okay, when you are downloading the Spring framework, once you are creating the Spring project and all, what it will do? Spring framework will read all your classes information and Spring will create objects of the address class as well as employee class. So who is creating these objects now? With whom these objects are created? By the Spring logic, by the Spring framework. So here employee object. So how and all it is going to configure, how we are passing and all, we will see one by one. Okay, technically we need to create a Spring project and all. Theoretically understand. So in earlier example, what we did with respect to core Java, in memory itself, you are written new keywords. So directly JVM went there, created objects and all in JVM memory and everything. But here you should not create the object. Spring framework is expecting us like, you should not write down the logic for creation of objects. Your responsibility is writing the classes based on your requirement. Okay, just create all your classes, but object creation for those classes you should not write down. You have to pass that information to the Spring framework so that Spring will create object of our classes. So who is creating now? Spring framework creating object for the address class as well as employee class, and Spring will pass newly created objects wherever we want. Wherever we want in program. So that means now in our example level, I want to pass print Dilip some employee object to the print employee. So that means before calling this method, definitely I need employee object. So without employee object, can I call this method? There is no way, because it is always expecting employee object. Definitely you need employee object. But internally employee is having again dependency of address. So now in this case, if you are writing by using Spring framework logic and all, what Spring will do? Spring will create object of address class and employee class of so and that address object will be injected to the employee. So but we have to do some configuration. Okay, we have to pass information. That's why I taken a statement very clearly here, passing or configuring with this Spring framework. We have to configure we have to provide address class as well as employee class details to the Spring framework. So how we are providing that information and all, we will see in a technical point of view. Just dependency injection we are understanding. Now here, Spring creating objects, and simply you will write down like employee Dilip equal to, okay. Now you will not write down any new thing here. Simply request employee object from Spring framework. So that means now what you are doing in earlier case, yeah, this is what. So we return logic. So observe the right hand side part. So the object creation, the right hand side, you created object by using new keyword. But this time when you are going for the Spring framework, when you are using the Spring framework is telling like you just need to pass. The step number 1 is what you have to do, configure information with the Spring framework. So in the step number 2, what it will do, Spring will create objects. Spring will create objects. So it is a step number 1, passing information of classes to the Spring framework. Now Spring framework will create the objects with respect to Spring. I am talking now with respect to Spring framework. Okay, with respect to Spring framework, when you are passing information of classes to the Spring framework, Spring will create the objects. And in the third step, okay, that means wherever you want employee object, we should request from Spring framework. We should request from Spring framework. So how we are going to request and all, we will see. See, just theory point of view we are discussing, but when you are taking Spring example, maybe tomorrow, okay, so we are going to create a project. We are going to discuss in a programmatical point of view and all. Okay, so just now this is what the dependency injection. So the dependency injection is Spring is saying like define your classes, don't create the objects, let me know the your class information, and wherever you want objects, please request me. Okay, so the step number 1 is it is saying like define classes. Okay, I will close within 5 minutes, don't worry. So within 2-3 minutes we will close and we will continue in tomorrow, don't worry. So define classes, don't create objects in a shortcut. Okay, we are just elaborating all our discussion, summarizing the discussion. Don't create objects, that means don't write down new keyword logics, but instead of that, configure or pass info to Spring framework, so that based on your information what you passed to the Spring framework, Spring will create objects. And in the program level, wherever you want employee object, we should request employee, so sorry, we should request objects from Spring framework. So overall, this is what we are going to learn in our entire core Java point of view. Not core Java, core module point of view. So when you are converting everything in the programming level, we need to understand. So writing classes and all, we know it's a completely pure Java, core Java concept. But when it comes to the configuring the information, yes, this is what training happening in the core module level, and how we are creating, how Spring is creating objects internally after we are passing information of the classes and all. We will discuss very clearly internally and everything. And at the same time, how we are requesting objects from the Spring framework and all, we will see everything in tomorrow's class or maybe in the further classes and all. So we are not done with the dependency injection. We are just completed how the things are happening in the pure core Java level. And when it comes to the Spring framework level, what exactly Spring framework expecting from the development point of view, we discussed. Okay, so when it comes to the, I will save this example. Okay, let me save it. Let me save Naresh. So do one thing, Naresh, new folder, 8 p.m. So it's a employee address core Java dependency injection concept. Okay, so whatever the core Java example we discussed here, we will convert everything with respect to Spring point of view. Okay, we will save all this information in our, I will save all this information, don't worry. We will replicate the same example with respect to Spring framework point of view. How because we are out of the time. No, there will not be any holiday. Okay, just join the class. So we will continue the remaining part of the dependency injection and all tomorrow. Yeah, I will paste all these examples. The image also I will paste in the Google Classroom. Now let's come back to the Google Classroom. Whatever we created newly. Okay, so just try to add this code. This is what created by the admin team. So it will allow more people. So this is what the code. I'm copy pasting the invite link also in a chat for everyone. Classroom link. Okay, so as part of this classroom, so you just note it down or you can take snap at whatever it is. Okay, I think you've taken the snap, right? So as part of this, I uploaded the running notes what we taken till yesterday, and I uploaded the material of the Spring core module. You just refer it, whatever the topics we are just discussing, we will see one by one and all. Okay, we are just discussing right now Spring advantages. Okay, we are not still moved to the Spring technical level. The advantages of the Spring framework, why Spring is more popular. That is what we are discussing. Advantages of the Spring framework, why Spring is more popular. Now I uploaded one more document. This is a official document from the Spring people, Spring framework. Okay, it's an official document from the Spring people. You just download this and keep it up with you. It's an official document from the Spring framework people. Okay, so just I attached everything, so it will contain all the details of all Spring framework and everything very clearly. It is almost 1400-1500 lines of PDF. It's official document from the Spring website. I downloaded and I just attached here for your reference point of view. So this is actual material. This is what everything, and I will create one more section. I will create one more section. So are you getting any classroom? Class is full again. Sir, it is also not working. Okay. Not allowing to join, unable to join. Something went wrong. This class is full. Okay. So I don't know why, even I asked admin team, it is allowing only 150. So yesterday's session is better. Do one thing. Let me share for time being. I will save the chart. Can I send files here? Yeah, Google Drive. It's better to go with the Google Drive. Okay. Do one thing. I will create a Google Drive only. It's a better. Don't want to waste time with the Google Classroom and all. So whoever is having access of the yesterday's Google Classroom and today's classroom, try to access it. And if you are having friends, just share with it. But immediately I'm going to create the Google Drive location so that it will allow. I will try to find out some option. Even I cannot share material from here. Something went wrong. This class is full. Contact the teacher for more information. I don't know why it is allowing only 150 students. So 270, even it is also allowing only 270 students. I will check with the team, or I will create a Google Drive location and I will try to give open access to everyone. So you can access from there. I will make it as a open. So I will give that Google Drive access tomorrow. So you can directly access that from the Google Drive. Okay, just allow me for one more day. So anyway, whoever is having access of the classroom, just access from there. If not, tomorrow onwards, there is no topic of classroom. Directly I will upload in the Google Drive. So you don't have any problem with that. I thought like it will allow more students. Sorry for that. But anyway, tomorrow onwards, there is no concept of classroom. Directly, I will upload everything in the Google Drive and I will share all the details by starting of the class itself. Thanks for understanding me. So let's connect on tomorrow's class. Don't miss the concepts. We are understanding very clearly. I'm just trying to provide everything. Okay. So it's a very important. Okay. Thank you.